Endeavor's a lot about the ethos of becoming a multiplier, someone who trains and invests in and mentors that next generation. So it's that combination we're looking for.
Linda, it's wonderful to have you on Floor Talk today here at NYSE International Day.
Thank you for having me.
So Linda, tell me, what sparked the idea for you to co-found Endeavor, and how has it changed, or your mission changed or grown since you started?
Well, back in the mid-90s, I was living in Latin America, having escaped the law. I did not want to practice after graduating. And I realized that no one in Argentina, in Brazil, in Chile, where I was traveling, wanted to become an entrepreneur. And here it was, back in the days of Yahoo and Netscape and Steve Jobs going back to Apple Computer, and I was confused. So two things happened. One is I started talking about Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak and the famous Apple, starting in the garage. And one day a kid came up to me and said, "Linda, nice talk, but no one in Latin America is going to give me money for my crazy idea, and I don't even have a garage." So that was beat one. I was like, oh my God, there needs to be local role models. The ones in Silicon Valley don't resonate. And the second thing that happened is I couldn't understand why people wanted to be in government. This made no sense to me. And I was in a taxi in Buenos Aires, and my driver had an engineering degree. And we kept going back and forth. I was asking him why he wasn't starting something new and innovative. And he said, well, there's no word like that here. And today, everyone knows empreendedor and emprendedorismo. And in fact, the editor of the Brazilian dictionary Portuguese dictionary, called up Endeavor and said, because of our work, we helped to codify and popularize these terms for entrepreneur. And we've done this in multiple languages and markets. But imagine if you can't even have a word, if you don't have stories that resonate, you can't be that thing. So I thought, perfect time to start an organization that's going to be of, by, for entrepreneurs, put them on the map, show venture capital, there's great talent. And no one thought this would work. I was named Chica Loca, the crazy girl throughout Latin America. And today, just scrolling to where we are, Endeavor operates in 45 countries with a plan to be in 100 countries by 2035. And we are finding some of the biggest, brightest stars of entrepreneurship. People have gone on, over 70 companies in our market have gone to create unicorns, the billion-dollar companies in the rest of the world. So I think the biggest thing that's changed is today, if I were to say, oh, entrepreneurship outside Silicon Valley, no one would call me Chica Loca.
Now, Linda, tell me, when you're looking for high-impact entrepreneurs to support, what specific qualities or traits stand out to you?
Well, we're really looking at the person, the business, and what we call the inflection point. So to become an Endeavor entrepreneur is a very difficult process. Only about 2% of those we screen around the world come in, and that's because we have 600 full-time team members on the ground in these 45 countries. But every month, we have what we call a global international selection panel. So to become an Endeavor entrepreneur, you have to pass the test of fellow entrepreneurs, VCs, or people who've scaled great companies. And they're looking for three things: people who dream bigger. Do you have a business that's changing the way something is done, either locally or globally? Scale faster. Are you someone who's achieved the traction? You're not at the startup phase. You're at what we call the scale-up phase. And you can get to 100 million in revenues and actually move the needle of your economy. And then the last is people who pay it forward. And Endeavor's a lot about the ethos of becoming a multiplier, someone who trains and invests in and mentors that next generation. So it's that combination we're looking for.
Now, with Endeavor's global reach, how do entrepreneurial ecosystems differ between regions, and where do you see commonalities?
What's interesting is how that's changed as well. So it used to be that if we found an entrepreneur in Brazil, they would want to grow just in Brazil. Then it moved to, okay, maybe we'll go to Mexico or Colombia. Today they're looking at maybe Kenya, maybe Indonesia. So the commonalities of emerging markets is much more than the dissimilarities. So one of the things I've said is forget B2B, business to business, and forget B2C, business to consumer. It's E to E. It's emerging market to emerging market. So we're actually seeing, we have a company, a neobank, that's founded in South Africa that now is one of the most important neobanks in Southeast Asia, with bases in Singapore and the Philippines. So I think that that's one of the things we're going to see is a lot more cross-border activity, because the business models, when you grow up in chaotic environments, your business models actually work better than those created in places like the US, where we're used to stability.
And finally, Linda, tell me, what are the biggest hurdles entrepreneurs face today, and how is Endeavor helping them tackle those challenges?
I think in many parts of the world, there's still not smart capital. And so the idea of getting someone to believe, if you don't have the right family last name and you don't have the connections already, that you can be an innovative young person with an idea that can actually become a real company that can provide liquidity to investors. We're here in the New York Stock Exchange. We have to talk about liquidity and exits. So that's number one. In places, there's still not smart capital. I think the second thing is there needs to be different pathways to that liquidity, to that exit, right? It's harder to IPO these days. So how do we make that path easier? But how do we talk about M&A? How do we talk about private equity? What are the options, right, to actually grow a company at scale? And the last piece is growing yourself. So much of what Endeavor does is peer-to-peer learning, people who've been there and done that. And I can't tell you how many founders struggle with mental health, struggle with growing their business while doing right by their family. How do you cope with the fact that you're working all these hours and you haven't taken anything out? You don't have liquidity. You have to tell your spouse we can't go on vacation. Or on the opposite side, people who have achieved that IPO or that liquidity, and then their world falls apart and they worry about their children having too much. And so I think we take for granted this aspect of growing yourself as a leader and a human being.
Wow. Well, Linda, it's been amazing to talk with you. Thanks for joining me on Floor Talk today.
Thank you.